hundreds of millions, tens of millions. Even if it costs a fortune, bring them back. An incident involving a family defecting from North Korea has enraged Kim Jong-un. Typically, North Korea hastily conceals the defection of high-ranking officials, but this time was different. Unusually, they are exerting all their efforts to track them down, even requesting cooperation from China and Russia. What kind of person could provoke such a violent reaction from North Korea? What extraordinary method did they use to escape through the most dangerous and brutal route, evading surveillance? The harrowing survival story of a family, unheard of until now, begins here. We'll start now. Before that, if you subscribe and hit the like button once, you can find new moving stories every day. And please let me know in the comments which region you are listening to this story from. I will greet each and every one of you and convey my gratitude. Now, let's start the story. My name is Ri Chol-soo. Before coming to South Korea, I was the Deputy Director of the Foreign Currency Procurement Bureau under the Secret Financial Department of Room 39 of the Workers' Party in the deepest and darkest place in Pyongyang. Simply put, I was the steward managing Chairman Kim Jong-un's personal vault. From the astronomical funds used to make nuclear weapons to the cost of the finest wines, the Kim family drank, and the purchase of Swiss watches, the dollars, the lifeline of the regime, all had to pass through my fingertips before going out. Others called me a successful revolutionary. Driving a black Benz through the streets of Pyongyang, sitting in the back seat opened by my driver, watching the starving residents through the window, it felt like a scene from a movie. My fridge was always stocked with French cheese and cognac, and my wife and son received treatment at Pyongyang's best hospital, the Bonghwa Clinic, the top 0.1% life one could enjoy in North Korea. I thought I would be the eternal master of this system, but I realized too late that it was nothing more than a beautifully decorated prison. Fear came silently, like a fog. In early 2021, the air in Pyongyang began to change. As Chairman Kim Jong-un declared war against anti-socialism, my colleagues around me started to disappear one by one. The head of the Trade Ministry, who had been laughing and playing pool with me just yesterday, was suddenly labeled a spy and dragged away. The reason was simple. A fabricated accusation that some of the payment for goods imported from China was missing. On the day he was publicly executed, only silence circulated among the Pyongyang officials. We didn't say anything, but we knew with our eyes. Those who handle money can die at any moment. To Kim Jong-un, we were disposable items, or rather, walking piggy banks that could be made to spit out money at any time. That's when I started to feel the cold gaze on my back. When I came home after work, I heard a tick-tick machine sound from the other side of the phone. It was a wiretap. Even my wife's ordinary greeting, "Honey, did anything happen today?" felt like a noose around my neck. I had to put my index finger to my lips to stop her from speaking. There was no space anywhere in the house where I could speak freely. What was most chilling was the gaze of the neighbors I met in the apartment hallway. Those who used to greet me politely now avoided me stealthily. They wouldn't ride the elevator with me, and if our eyes met, they quickly turned their heads. They had already smelled it. The smell of death that Ri Chol-soo is soon going to be finished. The survival instinct of North Koreans is more sensitive than that of beasts. It was one night when I couldn't sleep due to anxiety. I went to the living room to get some water, and inadvertently looked outside through a gap in the veranda curtain. Under the streetlight, a black sedan without a license plate was parked facing the entrance of my apartment. The engine was on, but the lights were off. I saw a red cigarette light flickering inside the car. My heart sank. Agents from Department 10 of the State Security Ministry. They were surveillance me, or rather, they were timing when to load me into the trunk at any moment. The next morning, on my way to work, the car was still there. I could feel the man sitting in the driver's seat staring at me through his sunglasses. It was as if he was saying, "Your destination is already decided." As soon as I arrived at the office, The duty officer approached me with a strange expression. "Comrade Deputy Director, there is an urgent summons from the Central Party's Organization and Guidance Department this afternoon. Bring all the books." At that moment, an alarm sounded in my head. Summons from the Organization and Guidance Department. And books? This is not an audit. It's a prelude to a purge. My predecessor also received the same call and never returned. They had already completed a scenario to execute me as a spy after extracting the details of the secret funds I managed. There is no way for a once suspected fund manager to leave North Korea alive. My hands were shaking like jelly. The photo of Kim Jong-un's family on my desk seemed to be mocking me. If I get caught like this, it won't end with just me dying. My loving wife will be dragged to Yodok concentration camp to live a life worse than a beast. And my son, who has just entered middle school, will be branded a traitor's child for life and have to rot in a coal mine. I can't. At least not my child. I rushed to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I was drenched in sweat in the mirror, but only my eyes had changed. Tonight is it? If not tonight, there is no tomorrow for our family. With trembling hands, I tightly gripped the USB in my bosom. It contained all the secret bank accounts and alias transaction details around the world that Kim Jong-un so desperately wanted to hide. This was my lifeline, and the only key to pulling our family out of hell. Now there was no choice left. I quietly left the office and told my driver, "My head hurts. I need to rest. Leave the car and go home." The sky in Pyongyang was as clear as ever, but to me it looked entirely red. Thus, I began the longest and most dangerous day of my life. That afternoon at 4 o'clock, my footsteps entering the house were heavy. As I opened the front door, the rich smell of soybean paste stew wafted in. My wife was preparing dinner in the kitchen, and my son, who had just returned from school, was giggling while watching television on the living room sofa. Such a peaceful scene. I stood at the entrance, gazing for a long time, knowing that this everyday life, which would be shattered in just a few hours, would be sorely missed. "Huh? Honey, you're already back? You said you'd be late today." My wife welcomed me cheerfully, wiping her hands on her apron. Without a word, I approached and turned up the television volume. To avoid eavesdropping, my wife's eyes widened in surprise at my sudden action. I grabbed her shoulder tightly and whispered very softly in her ear, "Don't be surprised and listen. We're leaving tonight." My wife's eyes shook violently. She must have wanted to ask if it was a joke, but she closed her mouth when she saw my expression. We've been married for 20 years. There's no way she couldn't read the fear and determination in her husband's eyes. "Leaving? Where to?" "Maybe." "Yes, we're leaving here. We're leaving the Republic." The moment I spat out those words, my wife's legs gave way, and she collapsed. Her face turned as white as a blank piece of paper. She's a woman who has lived in Pyongyang all her life. The word defection was as good as death. My wife clung to my collar with a trembling voice. "Honey, are you crazy? If we get caught while leaving, we'll all die. What about Hun? Can't you just apologize for your mistake? You have the chairman's trust, don't you?" It felt like my chest was being torn apart, but I had to stay calm. It's already too late. The Organization and Guidance Department's summons has fallen. If I go in, you and Hun will have to go to Yodok. Do you want to go there and live like a beast until you die? Or do you want to try to escape, even if it means dying on the way? Yodok. At that terrible word, my wife bit her lips. With tears in her eyes, she glanced at our son in the living room. My wife was strong. She wiped away her tears and nodded with a resolute expression. "I understand. I'll go. We have to save our Hun." From that moment on, we lived through a time like war. We couldn't take much luggage. We had to avoid looking like we were going on a trip. Instead of a large bag, we only took out 2 backpacks. We wore several layers of thin underwear. On the outside, we looked like we were wearing regular clothes, but we had to maintain our body temperature if we were going to spend the night in the mountains. My wife took out some jewelry from the depths of the wardrobe and stuffed it into her pockets, and I took out a wad of $50,000 in emergency funds that I had saved in the safe in my study. And the most important thing, I hid the USB containing Kim Jong-un's slush fund files deep inside my socks. Dad, where are we going? When my son, who didn't know what was going on, asked with his eyes closed, my throat tightened, and I couldn't speak. Hun, Dad, and Mom are going on a trip to a very far away. A fun place. It's a secret mission, so we have to go quietly. Okay? My son nodded excitedly. Looking at his innocent face, I made a silent vow. Even if it costs me my life, I will take you to a free world. At 7 p.m., as the sun began to set, we stepped out of the front door. I felt like my heart was going to burst. That black sedan would still be parked at the entrance of the apartment. Going out the front door was nothing short of suicide. I led my family through the underground boiler room passage, which we usually didn't use. It was a smelly passage where rats roamed, but it was our only lifeline. As we emerged from the underground and came out the back way of the apartment complex, the cold night air hit our faces. Fortunately, the guards were only paying attention to the front entrance. We walked slowly, pretending to be a family out for an evening stroll. My whole body was on edge, afraid that someone might shout, "Stop!" from behind us, but I never looked back. We caught a passing Sabicha illegal taxi truck on the main road. To get to Pyongyang, the meeting place with the broker we had contacted in advance. But to leave Pyongyang, there was a checkpoint we had to pass through. The infamous Checkpoint No. 10. This checkpoint, guarded by the Pyongyang Defense Command, is a place where even Pyongyang citizens cannot leave without a pass. The truck stopped in front of the checkpoint. An armed soldier approached and knocked on the window. "Show me your pass." "Where are you going?" The driver was trembling with fear. My wife in the back seat hugged our son and bowed her head. "If we get caught here, it's the end." I took a deep breath, opened the car door, and got out confidently. Then I took out my ID card, Deputy Director of the Secret Finance Office of Room 39 of the Workers' Party, from my pocket and thrust it in front of the soldier's eyes. "I'm Lee Chul-soo from Room 39. I'm on my way to an urgent inspection related to Fund No. 1, so open the gate." The soldier's eyes focused on the gold foil pattern on the ID card, and his pupils shook. "Room 39 and Fund No. 1 Kim Jong-un." These words are like a sanctuary that must never be touched for North Korean soldiers. If I had hesitated, he would have been suspicious. But instead, I yelled at him. "Look here! Every minute and second is urgent, and if you block my car and delay the numbering one event, your comrade will be held responsible. What's your name?" At my frantic shout, the soldier was terrified and quickly saluted. No, I'm sorry. Please proceed." The barricade went up. As the truck started moving again, I almost collapsed to the ground as I watched the checkpoint disappearing in the rearview mirror. The lights of Pyongyang grew farther and farther away. The stage of my brilliant life, and the prison that was like hell. Now, my hometown, which I could never return to, was disappearing into the darkness. My wife was silently sobbing, and I looked up at the dark night sky and prayed, "Please, don't find us before tomorrow morning." But God was harsh. Just 2 hours after we left Pyongyang, a loud siren began to blare throughout the city. A report of Lee Chul-soo's escape had been placed on Kim Jong-un's desk. The real chase was just beginning. At the time, I was passing through Checkpoint No. 10 in Pyongyang and heading to Pyeongseong. The office of the President's Palace in Pyongyang was literally on fire. According to a story I heard later in South Korea through a North Korean source, Chairman Kim Jong-un's anger that night was beyond imagination. At 10 p.m., Commander Bowie, drenched in cold sweat, submitted a direct report. Deputy Director Lee Chul-soo, escape confirmed. The home safe is empty. Even the secret ledger of the No. 1 ruler's funds has disappeared. Upon receiving the report, Kim Jong-un is said to have thrown his crystal whiskey glass against the wall and jumped up. Shards flew everywhere, and the officers probably pressed their heads to the floor, unable to even breathe. It wasn't just a simple defection. The USB I brought contained passwords to anonymous accounts hidden in Switzerland, Hong Kong, and Macau, and the entire money laundering route. If that were to be made public, it wouldn't just be a matter of international sanctions, it would be a national collapse-level blow, drying up the very financial lifeline that sustains the North Korean regime. Kim Jong-un is said to have slammed his desk and shouted with bloodshot eyes, "Catch him, even if it costs $1 billion." Then, with trembling fingers, he pointed at the map and added, "If that bastard crosses the border alive, your heads will roll first, you Bowie bastards. Use any means necessary to retrieve that ledger. Seal the entire border immediately." With this one command, checkpoints doubled on all roads leading from Pyongyang to the border, and the elite special forces, the Storm Corps, began to be deployed along the North Korean-Chinese border. A massive pursuit operation, pouring in the national budget, began just to catch that one person. But until then, I was completely unaware of the situation in Pyongyang. Hiding in the shivering truck bed, heading towards the agreed-upon meeting place on the outskirts of Pyeongseong. Pyeongseong is a logistics hub right above Pyongyang and a place where all kinds of illegal transactions take place. I was supposed to meet the broker, known as Viper, who would take me to the border at the back of an abandoned factory here. At 11:30 p.m., the meeting place was pitch dark. "Honey, I'm scared. There's no one here," my wife whispered, gripping my arm tightly. I too had cold sweat running down my spine. The meeting with the broker was a matter of life and death. If he betrayed us or was bought off by the Bowie, we would be walking into a tiger's den. About 20 minutes past the agreed time, someone walked out of the darkness. A man in his 50s with sharp eyes, wearing old people's clothes. It was Viper, but he wasn't alone. 2 sturdy young men followed behind him, holding iron clubs. In an instant, I instinctively hid my son behind my back. "Mr. Ree, long time no see. But you didn't come empty-handed, did you?" Viper let out a sly laugh and glanced at my backpack. I tried to stay calm and said, "The agreement wasn't different. Why did you come with people?" "Ah, the road ahead is dangerous, so I brought some escorts. But more importantly, rumors have spread all over Pyongyang. The bounty on your head is enormous. So, you see, we need to adjust the fare a bit." These bastards had figured out my true identity. They knew I wasn't just a defector with some money, but a special wanted person whose capture could change their fortunes. Viper demanded 5 times the initially agreed amount, $50,000. Giving them the money wasn't the issue. But if I showed weakness here, they would exploit us to the end and eventually sell us out to the Bowie. I deliberately laughed heartily. It was a moment where I had to show some guts to survive. "Look here, Comrade Viper. I've been through thick and thin in room 39. You seem to covet the bounty on my head, but think carefully." I glared at the young men and growled lowly. "The fact that Chairman Kim Jong-un ordered 'catch him' means the secret I know is that dangerous. Do you think you'll be safe if you hand me over? The moment I open my mouth, you who helped me defect will be executed without a trace. The Bowie doesn't leave witnesses alive." My words made Viper's eyes waver. Even though they were blinded by greed, they knew better than anyone the brutality of the Bowie. "We're in this together now. Shut up and just get us to the border. Then, upon arrival, I'll give you the agreed amount, plus a bonus. Let's do this cleanly." My mouth was dry with tension. The silence felt like a year in 1 second. Then, a loud siren started blaring from the main road in the distance. Checkpoints and searches had begun all the way to downtown Pyeongseong. Damn it! They must have already caught the scent. Viper spat on the ground and made a decisive gesture. "All right, let's run! Get in!" We started running after Viper. But there was no comfortable sedan. The place they led us to was an old charcoal truck. A truck that runs on wood with its bed covered in black coal dust. To avoid checkpoints, we have to take the mountain road, so lie flat in the bed. I got on with my wife and son in the corner of the bed. As soon as the truck started with a jolt, 3 Bowie patrol cars with searchlights on passed by on the road right behind us with a roar. It was a close call. Watching the receding patrol car lights through the gaps in the truck bed, I clenched my fist. Spend $1 billion to catch me? Let's see you try. My fighting spirit surged. No matter how fast Kim Jong-un's pursuit team was, it couldn't be faster than the steps of a father trying to save his family. The death race, requiring a full day's run from Pyeongchang to the border of North Hamgyong Province, had begun. The road from Pyeongchang to North Hamgyong Province was a race through hell. The charcoal truck we were on was a piece of junk that couldn't even reach 40 kilometers. The bed was piled high with black coal, and we had to lie flat under an old tarpaulin covering it, holding our breath. Jolt! Jolt! Every time the truck swayed, hard chunks of coal mercilessly stabbed my back and sides. But what was more painful than the physical agony was my heart. Just yesterday, my wife and son were sleeping under the finest duck-down comforter, but now they were rolling around like sacks of coal, covered in coal dust. I looked at my son's face in the light of a small flashlight. His pale face was smeared black with coal, and his lips were blue from the cold. Even though he must be hungry, seeing him not complain once, worrying that it might worry his dad, made my heart ache. I took out a piece of dried cornbread from my pocket and put it in my son's mouth. Hoon, let's hold on a little longer. Dad is sorry. Really sorry. At that moment, my wife's cold hand covered the back of my hand. Honey, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. We're doing this to survive. With those words, the tears I had been holding back welled up. The dozens of times I had wondered if leaving behind the comfortable life in Pyongyang for this hardship was the right decision. All those regrets vanished like melting snow in that moment. That's right. We're going now to survive. If we break down here, we're the most unqualified. It was around 3 a.m. The car was crossing the rugged, sparsely populated mountain road, the Machonryong Pass. We deliberately chose the difficult old path to avoid the official checkpoint. But suddenly, the truck came to a screeching halt with a chilling sound. Damn it! I heard the broker's low curse from the driver's seat. My heart sank. Is it a breakdown or an ambush? Peeking out through the tarp, I thought I might stop breathing. In the darkness, 4 men in military uniforms were standing, shining flashlights and blocking the truck. It wasn't an official checkpoint. It was an illegal mobile checkpoint, known as a bandit gang, where hungry soldiers from a regional military unit, cut off from rations, stopped passing cars to extort bribes. Hey, driver, get out! It was a young voice, but full of killing intent. An AK rifle was slung over his shoulder. I heard the broker get out and shuffle around. Oh my, comrades, you've had a hard time. It's just a coal truck. Coal? Don't make me laugh. Who drives an empty truck at this time? What's in the back? It's not people, is it? One of the soldiers quickly approached the cargo area. With each step of his boots, my heartbeat grew louder. My wife was holding our son tightly in her arms, trembling. If we get caught like this, it's not just about losing money. It was a desperate crisis that could alert Pyongyang. I gave my wife a look that said, "Stay calm," and took something out from my pocket. Hey, check the cargo! The soldier tapped the tarp with his gun. The broker urgently tried to stop him. No, comrade, let's just go. I'll give you a pack of my cigarettes. Move it! If it's suspicious, I'll shoot you all. The tarp was suddenly pulled back. A dazzling flashlight beam shone directly on our family. Huh? What is this? At the moment the soldier was about to aim his gun, I instinctively stood up and looked him straight in the eye. Even though I was covered in coal dust, the eyes of a cadre who had led thousands of subordinates in his lifetime were alive. In a low, authoritative voice, I scolded him like I would a subordinate who made a mistake at the Pyongyang office. Comrade, open your eyes! The soldier flinched and hesitated at the unexpected scolding. North Korean society is a strict class society. He instinctively sensed the power emanating from my tone and demeanor. Seizing the moment when he was stunned by my aura, I roughly stuffed what I was holding into his chest pocket. A pack of American Marlboro cigarettes, and two $100 bills tucked in between. In a world where a North Korean soldier's salary is less than $1 on the black market exchange rate, $200 is a fortune they couldn't even dream of seeing in 10 years of military service. I won't say more. We're just a family going to visit relatives. Take this and go buy some hot meat soup with your comrades and keep your mouth shut. Got it? The soldier checked the dollars with trembling hands and his eyes widened. The gun barrel slowly lowered. I could see the other soldiers next to him swallowing their saliva. They had no revolutionary spirit. At that moment, the dollars that would fill their empty stomachs were greater than General Kim Jong-un. Understood. Teacher, please go safely. The soldier even saluted and let us through. As the tarp was pulled back over and the truck started moving, the breath I had been holding finally burst out. My whole body was drenched in cold sweat. The broker looked at the rearview mirror and clicked his tongue. Wow, Teacher Lee, that was one heck of a handout. With that money, we could have bought their whole company. I replied with a bitter laugh. So the price of a human life is just a pack of cigarettes and 2 pieces of paper. This is the reality of the Republic. The car raced through the darkness again. My son, perhaps relieved, fell asleep on my knee. But I couldn't sleep, because I knew this was just a trailer. The real hell was waiting ahead at the border, the Tumen River. I had heard that there, spread out, was the Storm Corps, a killing machine that not even bribes could get through. A faint reddish dawn was breaking outside the window. When the sun rises tomorrow morning, will we be stepping on the land of freedom, or will we be floating down the cold river? My wife was stroking our sleeping son's head and quietly praying. Please, protect our family. After a full day's drive from Pyongyang, we finally arrived at the Tumen River. The moment I got out of the truck, I felt the 25°C cold biting into my bones. But the real horror was the living hell scene that unfolded before my eyes. The riverbank was surrounded by triple layers of barbed wire, and searchlights swept the river incessantly from guard posts set up every 100 meters. They were elite special forces from Pyongyang, members of the Storm Corps. They were killing machines that didn't bat an eye at bribes. Their mission was to shoot on sight, nothing else. I couldn't even breathe. The thought, "This is impossible," kept circling in my head. The broker, Snake, who had been lying on the riverbank scouting, whispered, "We can't go straight through here. The regular escape route is covered by the Storm Corps and turned into a minefield. The path I've prepared is one that no one chooses." The place he pointed to was far from the usual crossing point, a treacherous rocky area where the current was strong and the ice was thin or not frozen at all. Even the guards had given up patrolling this death zone, calling it a place only crazy people would cross. If the ice breaks there, it's the end, isn't it? Why this place? I growled lowly. The Viper looked me straight in the eye and said, "Other places, you'll get caught 100%. Here, if you're lucky, you live. If you're unlucky, the ice breaks. The odds are 50-50. I came trusting Teacher Lee's intel. There was no choice. I tied ropes around my wife and son's waists in case of an accident. I led the way in front, and my wife followed in the middle, carrying our son in her arms. I made a silent vow to myself, if I fall, my wife will pull me along. If she falls, I'll carry our son on my back, no matter what, until we reach Chinese soil. I carefully stepped onto the river, gripping the ice with both hands. The ice beneath my feet creaked. My wife began to sob from the cold and fear, and our son whispered, trembling, "Dad, I'm scared." His cry felt like thunder to me, and my heart nearly burst. When we reached the middle of the river, a searchlight suddenly swept over the water from the right guard post with a swoosh sound. "Get down!" I screamed, forcing my wife and son to lie flat on the ice. As the intense white light passed over us, I felt a surge of fear, as if my blood was reversing. After the searchlight passed, I started crawling again, but just then, A military dog's bark erupted from behind us. Woof! The border guards had discovered the traces we left behind. You bastards! Don't move! Prepare to fire! The guard's shout pierced the air. I gave my wife and son one last command. Run! Run towards China, no matter what. Fireworks exploded on the riverbank behind us. The Storm Corps had started their targeted shooting. Bullets hit the ice with clang, clang sounds, sending shards flying. At that moment, the ice beneath my feet cracked loudly with a crash. My right leg plunged into the cold river. Without feeling the pain, I gathered all my strength to pull my soaked leg back onto the ice. Just a little more! We're almost there! I shouted, as if spitting blood. Finally, my wife and son reached the stone wall on the Chinese riverbank and frantically climbed up. I summoned my last strength and tumbled onto Chinese soil. Lying on the cold ground, I frantically looked back. The North Korean riverbank was still under fire, and the searchlight madly scanned the river. I got up from my wet body and hugged my wife and son. Only then did our son burst into tears, and my wife collapsed in my arms as if fainting. We had survived. I had crossed the line that Kim Jong-un had tried to block, even at the cost of $1 billion, with my father's courage. But this unfamiliar land, China, was just the beginning of another hell. The relief of setting foot on Chinese soil lasted less than a minute. I hugged my wife and son, who had collapsed on the riverbank, waiting for the gunfire from North Korea to stop. We survived. This simple fact was all that sustained my nerves. But the Chinese riverbank was not a safe zone either. The North Korean guards' gunfire would have reached the ears of the Chinese police. If we stayed exposed like this, we would be arrested as illegal immigrants and forcibly repatriated to North Korea. We had escaped one hell, only to find the gates of an even colder hell waiting. Teacher Lee, wake up! We need to move quickly. The Viper appeared from the darkness and pulled me to my feet. His face was smeared with coal dust and sweat, but his eyes showed he had already made his calculations. If we stay here for more than 5 minutes, the police will come. The car I arranged is waiting 2 kilometers away. Carry this child. With my trembling body, I lifted my son, who lay limp like he had fainted, onto my back. My wife walked with the Viper's support, but my leg, soaked in river water, was numb with pain. The 2 kilos felt like 200 kilos. Squeezing every ounce of strength, I pushed through rice fields and forests until finally an old van appeared. As soon as the car started, I took out a bundle of $50,000 from my backpack and handed it to the Viper. This is the promised money. Our deal is now over. The Viper's eyes flashed with greed as he received the money. No, Teacher Lee. Rumor has it you're in charge of nuclear funds? This money is far from enough to cover the price on your head. Do you know how much bounty Kim Jong-un has put on you? I want to live too. I sensed a hint of blackmail in his words. I thought he might try to extort more money or even sell us to someone other than the Korean embassy. I lowered my voice, filled with a killing intent, and said, Comrade Viper, you can't even imagine the value of the secret I hold. This $50,000 is my mercy to you, and what I'll give you from now on is a chance to survive. I leaned down and whispered in the Viper's ear, If you hand me over through the promised safe route and live well, hiding the money you received from me, you'll become incredibly rich. But if you betray me out of greed, don't forget that I, who has touched Kim Jong-un's money, can erase you from this world with the greatest of ease. I have insurance with all your information, including your family and hideout. In this moment, I returned to being the deputy director of Room 39 and overwhelmed the Viper. He trembled as if sickened by my chilling gaze and the word insurance. He realized he had mistakenly messed with the top predator he should never have touched. I understand. I understand. I want to live too. As promised, I'll hand you over to the professional broker in charge of the Mongolia route from now on. The route through Yunnan province, China's worst blind spot, leads to the Laos-Thailand border. Only then did I lean back with a bit of relief. The Yunnan route was the longest and most dangerous path through the Chinese hinterland, but it was also the least surveilled. After several weeks of arduous journey through Yunnan, Laos, and Thailand, miraculously, our family set foot on South Korean soil. And now, I am sitting in a secret investigation room filled with NIS agents. All the wounds on my body have healed, and the unwashable dirt has been cleansed. But my mind is still in a tense state, as if standing on ice. Mr. Ri Cholsu, finally. The NIS Core Intelligence Analyst, overseeing the investigation, opened his mouth with a stern expression, looking at the USB in front of me. He was a veteran who had worked as a North Korea expert for decades, but his eyes showed an emotion close to astonishment. We expected Mr. Ri Cholsu to bring Kim Jong-un's secret fund ledger. But it's beyond our expectations. It contains the entire flow of funds for North Korea's nuclear development program, the Swiss PNB Bank's anonymous account, the Macau money laundering route, and the entire substance of the underground nuclear financing network through Iran and Syria is all here. It's a nuclear card that can cut off the root of North Korea's nuclear development. The analyst clicked his tongue and shook his head. The value of this information goes beyond a simple defection. It's enough to shake the entire situation on the Korean peninsula. Mr. Ri Cholsu, you didn't just escape. Maybe the heart of the North Korean regime has come to us. As I saw the shocked expressions of the NIS agents, I finally realized the weight of the USB I had risked my life to protect. Kim Jong-un's anger, saying, even if it costs 100 million, catch him, was justified. I was not just a runaway subordinate. I had come out with a bomb that would cut their leash. Now my family is safe. But the nuclear financing card I brought will once again thrust me into the midst of the world's intelligence war. My defection was not the end, but the beginning of a fierce intelligence war targeting the heart of North Korea. In the NIS investigation room, I revealed the entire substance of the nuclear financing network. It was shocking information that pierced the heart of the North Korean regime. After that, our family entered Hana Center under the strict protection of the NIS. On the first day at Hana Center, our family was overwhelmed by the reality that contrasted sharply with life in North Korea. When it was time for breakfast, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was too much rice and side dishes on the tray. Even I, a high-ranking official in North Korea, only saw white rice and meat soup during holidays. My son grabbed my shirt sleeve tearfully as soon as he saw the rice and side dishes. Dad, can we really eat this as much as we want? They won't take it away if we leave some? I couldn't say anything. I just silently patted my son's head. The freedom to eat to one's heart's content was so desperately desired by that child. The fear and false consciousness that had dominated me for 20 years collapsed in front of that meal. My wife looked out the window of our lodging and said to me, "Honey, the door isn't locked. Here, we don't need to escape." For me, life at Hana Center was the first peace I've ever experienced in my life. A window where I could freely look outside, a stable meal provided every day, learning how to use a bank account and a smartphone for the first time, and a night without surveillance. In North Korea, I managed the ruling funds, but now I was receiving training to create my own bank account. It was true liberation, but even in this peaceful daily life, the shadow of darkness still pursued us. The NIS applied special security to our family because they knew the value of the information I possessed. Even within Hana Center, our movements were strictly controlled, and the security team in charge of our family never let up their 24-hour surveillance. One night, when everyone was asleep, I heard a faint sound outside the door in my sleep. A very small mechanical sound. Beep! I immediately had a gut feeling. Eavesdropping! It was the same mechanical sound that had been monitoring me in North Korea. I jumped out of bed and woke up my wife and son. Be quiet. Don't make any noise. The next morning, I secretly went to the NIS analyst in charge and said, "Last night, I heard the sound of an eavesdropping device being activated outside the room. It seems like an assassination squad is after us. They must have infiltrated here, knowing that I came to South Korea." The NIS agents didn't believe me at first. After all, Hana Center was South Korea's top security facility. But they couldn't ignore my confident expression and my experience as an intelligence expert that I had accumulated in Room 39. In the end, the NIS secretly launched a search for eavesdropping and wiretapping throughout Hana Center. And an astonishing fact was revealed. Not only in our family's lodging, but also inside the walls of the lecture room I frequently visited, miniature eavesdropping devices were found. It was the latest technology used by North Korea's security department. At that moment, the NIS analyst's face turned pale. Oh no, North Korea has infiltrated a special assassination squad into South Korea. It means that the value of Mr. Ri Chol-su's information is equivalent to Kim Jong-un's life. From now on, even Hana Center is not safe. Our family's warm freedom turned once again into a bloody chase. I finally realized my defection from the North Korean regime was a war that would not end until my last breath. I had now become the South Korean government's most important protected target, and the top priority target of North Korea's assassination squad. After the shadow of North Korean assassins fell over Hanawon, the process of our family settling in South Korea was different from that of ordinary defectors. The National Intelligence Service classified our family as a top priority protection target and completely disguised our names and identities. We secretly moved with bodyguards to a rental apartment complex on the outskirts of the metropolitan area. The house was small and modest, but to us it was an impregnable fortress, safe from the eyes and ears of Kim Jong-un. When I opened the front door and stepped inside, the first thing I told my wife was not to lock the door. She looked puzzled, but I said quietly, "Honey, there's no need to lock the door. No one can forcibly take us away from here." A life of constant fear that someone might suddenly break down the door and arrest us. Now that physical threat was gone. To me, that small rental house was a true palace, far more precious than any mansion in Pyongyang. My wife stood by the window, quietly stealing tears. Outside the window was a playground where children were running around, not a black sedan. I couldn't take a simple job to make a living because of the value of the nuclear financing secrets I brought with me. The National Intelligence Service wanted my knowledge to continue to be used as a strategic asset, and I accepted their request. My knowledge of the Room 39 foreign currency procurement network was fully transplanted into South Korea's North Korean intelligence authorities. I disguised myself as a consultant for a specialized intelligence company that directly attacked North Korea's finances. Now, holding a pen and a computer, I began a new war tracking North Korea's hidden money trail. My wife quickly adapted as she received Korean language and financial education. But I still had trouble sleeping at night. I was afraid that the invisible war I was fighting might harm my family. Meanwhile, it was my son's first day at school. As soon as he returned, he ran to me at the front door without even taking off his shoes and said, "Dad, the teacher here doesn't get angry. Even when I ask a lot of questions, the teacher smiles." In North Korea, if you asked too many questions or made a mistake in class, you could be beaten by the teacher or branded as a reactionary. My son's surprise and relief at that smile hit my heart hard. At that moment, I felt all the hardships I had endured to cross the border at the risk of my life. All the dangers of losing $50,000 and being shot by soldiers, melting away like snow. What I was after was not wealth and honor. It was to erase the shadow of fear from a child's face. I hugged my wife and son and vowed, until the day when the core information I brought is fully disclosed to the world and the North Korean regime collapses, I will fight quietly but fiercely in South Korea. Now we are taking root in this land in the name of father and citizen. A year after coming to South Korea, I am still under the protection of the National Intelligence Service. But now, I am gradually lifting restrictions on external activities. I agreed to a final interview with a documentary production team. The interview took place on a bench in a park near the apartment where our family lives. Next to me sat my son, who now seemed to have fully adapted to life in South Korea, smiling brightly. Staring at the camera, I said in a calm but firm voice, "Because of the nuclear financing ledger I brought, the North Korean regime is still suffering from severe international sanctions. North Korea is internally proclaiming a state of emergency now that we have escaped, but the more they try to stop me, the more their corruption is exposed. I am no longer a fugitive. I am now a fighter with information." I made it clear that my defection was not simply a personal asylum, but a strategic action to cut off Kim Jong-un's money trail. But the ultimate goal of all this hardship was only one. I was a top-ranking official in North Korea, but I couldn't even properly give my child a bowl of rice and a laugh. Behind Kim Jong-un's luxurious life was the blood and tears of countless officials and people. But now it's different. I smiled as I hugged my son's shoulders. Our family has found peace for the first time in our lives. Here in South Korea, we can live without fear, looking forward to tomorrow. My son can ask questions freely at school, and my wife greets unfamiliar neighbors with a smile. This is the decisive difference between North Korea's golden prison and the true freedom of South Korea. I paused for a moment and took a deep breath. Then, looking directly at the camera, I delivered my final message. I am no longer the Ri Chol-soo of the past. As a citizen of South Korea, I will fight until the inhumane regime of North Korea ends, using all the knowledge I have. But what I truly wish for is this, I said, stroking my son's head. Now, I want our child to live a normal, happy life in a world without fear. That is the destiny of the head of the family that I have chosen at the risk of my life. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Please share your thoughts with a one-line comment. I hope you are always healthy and happy.